Tar Heels, Salt Lake City against BYU. Before we talk about BYU itself, what do you think? What's the goal here? The goal is to win, obviously, even though it's an exhibition. So, what's the goal here for Carolina in addition to that? Is this just, hey, we're playing another really good team, kind of see where we stack up? Is this let's try some different combinations of guys? Maybe, if this was a NCAA tournament game, we wouldn't do this, but let's see how it works. Is this a throw different ideas out there and see, what do you think is the goal here, in addition to playing good basketball and hopefully winning the game?
Well, I think that's an interesting question because BYU has already played an exhibition. They played Nebraska.
And lost.
And they played that very differently.
Yeah.
They didn't have their starters in the game at the end of a one-ish possession game. And so there are lots of different ways to do this, as the Cougars showed. I don't think if it's a one-possession game, I think the Tar Heels are going to have what they think is their best lineup on the floor.
Well, one thing and I remember this, Adam, from the very first game that Hubert Davis was the head coach. It was an exhibition game against Elizabeth City State, and then the regular season was Loyola of Maryland was the first game. He was all in on winning that game. So I have to assume that the approach is similar. And I haven't talked to Coach Davis yet. I want to ask him this question. When I talked to him in pregame for the broadcast on Friday night, it's just, obviously you're trying to win just because you're competing, but what else are you trying to do here? And I'll be interested to see what he says because I don't know.
And I think some of it is see some of these combinations on the court for extended minutes, which you haven't really gotten a chance to do in the preseason. Players like Isaiah Dennis just haven't been on the court very much. So you would like to see what can they do, who do they fit with. As we are recording this, we're not 100% sure what personnel is available. So that will be a big part of the story also. But in general, Carolina plays Kansas 2 weeks from tomorrow in what is a very important game for this year's season and will shape a lot of the early thinking about this team. So I don't think you have the luxury of saying, let's see if Jaden Young could play 32 minutes at the point guard position. You're going to need to find out what you have. And remember, last year's exhibition was sort of look at Seth Trimble game because R.J. Davis wasn't playing. So there's always a chance that something like that could occur.
I mean, I have a hard time finding a downside to playing this game. I mean, obviously it's a long way to travel, but Carolina's going to travel during the year. Knock on wood, you don't want anybody either side to get hurt, but I mean, that's a risk in practice just like it is in a game. You are playing for both these teams. You're playing a very good opponent that has some things that are going to be hard for you to match up with. I think this is a terrific opportunity. Obviously, you don't want to go out there and get beat by 30 or something for either side, but I just feels like a really good opportunity to get an early feel of where you stand with no stakes. If you lose the game, that stinks. But it doesn't matter, just like it doesn't matter that Carolina beat Memphis last year. It felt good in the moment, but in the long run, it didn't really matter. And so it just feels like a really smart opportunity for these teams.
And I think it's an important opportunity for Carolina to do it on the road. With this many new players, force them to go somewhere all together and spend a couple days together and find out what the road routine is like. Because I'm guessing it's different than it was at Colorado State or Arizona or Montenegro Basketball LLC or any of those other places where the Tar Heels have come from, so that when they do eventually go on the road for a game that matters, whether that's in Fort Myers or in Lexington, they're prepared to do so the way that Carolina expects them to do it.
We'll get to BYU in a second. What are we interested in seeing from the Tar Heels? I'll go first with at least some of my answers. I would like to see how they handle the point guard position, how those minutes are divvied up, who plays well. I mean, Kyan Evans is going to play there. He will probably start the game if Carolina is going to go with who they think would be their starting five. I would assume you're going to see Derek Dixon there. I would assume you're going to see Seth Trimble probably a little bit there. How does Carolina handle that position? That is something I'll just be interested to see the answer to. Look, I mean, so Kyan Evans had 111 assists last year and an assist-to-turnover ratio of about 1.6. So he had about 1.6 assists for every turnover. Elliot Cadeau was at 2.04. RJ Davis was at 2.37 assist-to-turnover ratio. Well, neither of those guys are here anymore. Cadeau had over 200 assists on the season. So that's a big. I think the two of them combined were close to 350 assists between Cadeau and RJ Davis. So you're having to replace a lot there. How does Carolina do it? Something I'll be interested to see.
Well, I don't know what you think, but I think the parts we've seen of Kyan Evans playing point guard in practice and scrimmages and things like that, to me, in transition, he looks like he can do it just fine. He throws some hit-ahead passes that Carolina maybe hasn't thrown in past years. 2-on-1 type, 3-on-2 type breaks. He looks pretty comfortable making those decisions. It's in the half court where I think sometimes he's not quite there. And so how does Carolina look in the half court, especially at that point guard position? Because they will be in the half court some. There's enough history here of this era to know that is going to occur. So how are they able to execute? How do they best execute in that format is a legitimate question.
Am I crazy in thinking, Adam, and you've been to more practices than I have, I feel like Hubert Davis has harped on the pace and running more this year. I know, I mean, it's never not been important, don't get me wrong. It's something that he believes in, but I don't think it's something Carolina has done as well as it did in the Roy Williams era. But I feel like he has really stressed it. I feel like I've seen him like hopping up and down and waving his arm, going, run! Like I just feel like I've seen and heard it more this year. Do you agree with that?
Yes, but it's got to happen in the games.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
And I'm guessing the first time we check in with Hubert Davis, we'll ask him. I think.
Yeah, that's right. Coming up and probably starting in December.
I think part of the reason maybe he feels the ability to do that this year, you've got some big guys who can run the court, maybe more so than in past years. For all the things Armando Bacot was, a gazelle, maybe not one of them. But you'd love to get out and run and have Caleb Wilson on the wing and Henry Vasar trailing and Kyan Evans spotting up for three. That sounds like a pretty good offensive plan for the Tar Heels. So I think they've got some pieces that will enable them to do that. But when it's a 4-point game with 2 minutes left and Carolina gets the defensive rebound,
right,
are you willing to do it then?
Right.
Or do you want to cross half court and slow down? I think if Carolina proves to be good enough in transition, then they'll be comfortable letting them do that. But you've got to prove you can do it, and you've got to prove you're comfortable enough to let them do it. And this is the environment to try it, because if they mess it up, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. All right. What else? What are you interested in, Adam?
Well, I think we've talked about the Tar Heels are bigger. Are they tougher? Like, what are they inside exactly? There's not really an Armando Bacot, but there are a lot of taller guys. How is that going to manifest itself in the type of shots Carolina gets? Is Carolina happy to shoot threes and let those guys get the offensive rebounds? They certainly have some guys who have shot threes, and Jones has the numbers on this, but I'm not sure that's their best offense. I think you'd like to see it go inside first and maybe second. That's probably the best form of this Tar Heel team, but what kind of shots do they get? How do they utilize that height that they have that they didn't have last year?
Yeah, so Adam brings it up because I had texted him these numbers earlier today when I was going through some stuff, and they were, honestly, Adam, they were surprising to me. So last year, percentage of shots taken that were three-pointers for Jonathan Powell, 72.5%. So almost three-quarters of his shots were threes. Jaren Stevenson, in 2 years at Alabama, so this is a 2-year for him, not just one, 65% of his shots were threes. Kyan Evans, 61% of his shots were threes. Jaden Young, 58% of his shots were threes. Luka, in Montenegro, I'm assuming these stats are accurate, 45% of his shots are threes. So, Adam, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys who I think are in the top 10 or 11, if Carolina gets that deep, for the Tar Heels, who are shooting at about 50%, if we're including Luke in there, and then everybody else pretty significantly over 50% of their shots are three-pointers. That's a significant number.
Well, and look, we understand that if it's going in, you can shoot 100% of your shots from the three-point line if you're making them all. But just kind of listening to those numbers and thinking about what we've seen, I could imagine Jonathan Powell taking 72% of his shots this year from three.
Me too.
Because that is his role. Kyan Evans, that number maybe feels a little high. Luka, that number seems low based on what we've seen. I mean, I think maybe in practice he might be at more like 55 or 60.
Mm-hmm.
Jaren Stevenson, I think if Carolina has a great year, his number is below 65%.
Yeah, I think it's at 45%, 40%, because it is a part of his game, and it's a big part of his game. But he sat right here and told us that part of the reason why Carolina was attractive to him is he wanted to be more than that, more than just a tall guy that shot threes.
And stands in the corner.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with tall guys that stand in the corner and shoot threes, because Brady Manick, they should name a hamburger after him. That's how much I like Brady Manick.
The Man Burger.
Yeah, that's a good one. But like that was his game. Jaren Stevenson's game can be more than that. And if Carolina's going to be what they are, I think if we're sitting here in March and he's taking 65% of his shots from three, I'm concerned about the year. Unless he has one of those years where he shoots 49% from three.
Yeah.
Then it's all fine.
Yeah.
And then the two who you're not sure about are Caleb Wilson and Henry Vasar. Caleb Wilson because he has no numbers against college competition. And Vasar, I mean, what is Carolina going to ask him to do? I think you looked up about 22% of his shots for Arizona were threes.
It was about a fourth, not quite a fourth of his shots.
You wouldn't want him to get much higher than that because you have other guys who can do that. It's nice that he can, but you don't want to live on it. And then to me, Caleb Wilson's the big question because he has such an ability to do things closer to the basket. But of course, part of his attraction is he can also do it away from the basket. And at the next level, that might be important to him. But at this level, he is capable of getting 2 points almost any time that he wants closer to the rim. So can you persuade him that that's the best way for this year's team to win? That's a question about this year's team. He can hit that shot, but you don't want to live on it based on what we've seen so far.
Can I mention one guy, and you probably know who I'm going to say as I start saying this, who I don't think has barely been talked about at all that I think is going to play a lot for Carolina? Zayden High. Like, I think Zayden High is going to play a role for this team. And easy to forget about Zayden High. He was not on the team last year. But Zayden High is 6'10". Zayden High is a high-effort player. He has skill around the rim. He's got an edge to him. And I think unless my eyes have been deceiving me, he is firmly in that rotation up front for Carolina. I don't think he's going to start, but I think he's going to play.
He's a piece that is an important part of making this team what it could be. Now, he could score a lot of points for you in a very small amount of time. He could also commit a lot of fouls for you in a very small amount of time.
Got to watch fouls.
And he's got to figure out where the line is of Carolina does need somebody who has a little bit of that edge. That is something that he would bring that would be important for this year's team. Can you bring it without going over the line and maybe costing yourself 2 free throws or something in a one-possession game?
Or just getting too emotional and taking yourself out of being effective.
And forgetting to box out on one end and then not running the floor on the fast break or something. That's the fastest way for the coaching staff to decide, okay, we can't trust him. Like, he has all these physical qualities that are things the Tar Heels need. Can he do enough intangibly to persuade them that he can be trusted against Kansas and Michigan State? And, like, he's going to look great against Central Arkansas. He's going to. Can you trust him in those other games? I think that's an important storyline for this year. And that makes people like Henry Vasar better too, if he doesn't have to play 36 minutes.
All right. Let's look at BYU. So BYU's good. They 26 wins a year ago, made it to the Sweet 16. Remember, they lost that game to Alabama 113-88 when Alabama – remember, they made it wasn't an NCAA record maybe for 3-pointers? Then stunningly didn't shoot as well against Duke in the next game. That's our Houston.
Houston.
Yes, sir. BYU's very good. They are very good in the sense they have very good players returning, and they have added very good players. Their leading scorer from a year ago, Richie Saunders, averaged 16.5 points. Shot better than 43% from 3. He's back. Their big guy, Keba Keita. They don't list weights, by the way, BYU. Only heights. 6'8" senior, originally from Mali, the country Mali. Utah originally, and then transferred to BYU. He's, 7.5 points, 8 rebounds, shot 67%, big, strong guy down low. They've got a bunch of other players back who have played key roles for them. They've added some good transfers. Robert Wright from Baylor, one of the higher touted guys in the portal last year. Averaged better than 11 points for Baylor last season. He's there. Kennard Davis came from Southern Illinois, where he averaged over 16 points a game. So smaller school, but scored a bunch. And then, of course, there's A.J. DeBonsa, who is at one point in time, I think, was the slam dunk, no question, number 1 recruit. I think there's been a couple other guys that have at least gotten into that conversation. But without a doubt, one of the best, if not the best, freshmen in the country. Caleb Wilson will be in that conversation. But DeBonsa is as well. And as Adam, if you were with us for the show the other day, they've played an exhibition already, and DeBonsa put up 30 points. So a good start. So, Adam, this is a talented team. I think it's a team that has real chance to be good this year. Preseason, they were picked second in the Big 12, ahead of Kansas, behind only Houston. And that makes sense. Of course, Houston, minutes from a national title last year. Kevin Young is in his second year. BYU is pushing the NBA angle hard. Young with an extensive NBA background. That they are pushing that angle hard with backing from, is it the Jazz? I mean, isn't there some kind of Jazz connection there?
They've got a lot of boosters who are very excited about their program.
And so this is a team that is a program that I think is putting a lot of resources to being good in basketball, and certainly someone you've heard of has the ability to win there. We all understand that. But it seems like they've pushed a lot of chips to the center of the table here, and this team is a team that is capable of being successful at a high level. In my opinion, simply looking at the roster and the pieces they have, this is a team that appears to be one that has a chance to be very good.
I think you take what you traditionally think about BYU, where you might see them in the 8-9 game. That's a good year for them. they're spending like a Final Four team.
Yeah.
And it appears on paper as though they've spent well enough that, like, when you go down their roster, you think, I guess in my mind, they were A.J. DeBonsa and maybe Saunders and some guys. They've got legit guys at all 5 positions on the court. They have legit talent everywhere. They got Robert Wright, who's a good point guard. I think a positive thing about them in terms of the Carolina perspective, they've got some things that I think might give Carolina trouble, like muscle down low and a very good point guard. Those are things that I would like to see Carolina compete against to see how they handle it, both offensively and defensively, and we're going to get a chance to do that right away. It's not just DeBonsa. Now, he did score 19 points in the first half of that exhibition game against Nebraska. He is legit. But you know what? Caleb Wilson is legit too. Hopefully neither one of them falls victim to the temptation of making this a one-on-one thing, because I think it easily could be.
I'm going to go on a limb and say there's going to be a moment where this occurs.
Yeah. But ultimately, I think they're both – I don't know A.J. DeBonsa personally, but I know Caleb Wilson personally because he sat right here in the pod. I think they're both smart enough to realize what type of attention they get and ultimately what kind of success that they're looking for they get depends on how far their team goes. Because I think both of these teams are capable of making a deep run in March, and this is the first step on that path.
So 9 o'clock on Friday night, you can certainly listen on the Tar Heel Sports Network.
That's the best way to listen.
ESPN Plus, Adam. Yes?
Yes.
So available, but you got to be stream savvy. Are you stream savvy? Think about that answer between now and Friday night at 9 o'clock.
Why would you not just listen to Jones and Tyler?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, just prepare yourself. From what I've heard, the BYU crew is doing the game on ESPN Plus. So just put it in your mind right now. If you turn on ESPN Plus, you are going to hear it from the BYU perspective. There's nothing wrong with that. Just understand that that's what's happening. So you don't need to email us and give us like a how can you justify that for the ESPN crew saying that they love the Cougs. They do love the Cougs. That's fine. They can love the Cougs. Or you could just listen to the Tar Heel Sports Network.
I'm looking forward to it. Man, it's a busy stretch coming up because Carolina plays on Wednesday. We're just strictly basketball here. Wednesday against Winston-Salem State in exhibition, and then Monday, Central Arkansas. Go time. That one counts.
Friday, Kansas.
And then Friday, Kansas.